Hello and good morning, Bill. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. What is it like for you as a writer to put the words on the page that actually came from a place in your personal life? And then today, you're sharing your personal journey with those that have chosen to listen. I mean, this is such a full circle event, and a lot of people don't get to experience what you're doing today, sir.
It's quite a rush. I mean, especially this book, which is really as sensitive an issue as there is in my life. This is really the white hot moment of my life when we're talking about coming of age in New York City at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic. So yeah, it's a rush and a little scary.
And you know, the coming of an age in a world where you were like the character says here, you thought you were coming out of the closet, nice and strong, but in reality, it really wasn't happening as strong as what some people may have picked up on. For a coming of an age story, though, this is amazing because we're not used to this, and I think this is a beautiful first step.
Thank you. I mean, I think that it's a story that needs to be told. I think especially for younger readers right now, it'll be a little bit shocking to go to a time when we didn't have representation of LGBT characters, LGBTQ characters on TV, movies, or anything. So, total different world.
Yeah, because, let's be honest. I mean, we're both old enough to realize the only time we ever heard about something like this was on the front cover of National Enquirer magazine. We'd all sit there and go, what?
Totally. I absolutely. And I was raised with every stereotype that we all were. Mm-hmm. And so as a kid I was an athletic kid, I didn't really understand how I could be gay because I didn't know of anybody who was gay who was not a stereotype.
Right.
So it was a very isolating time, even in New York.
The book is called Destination Unknown. I love the fact that you went back to 1987, right in the center of the AIDS epidemic. We're talking about, because I was there, we all lived it, but there's a lot of people today, dude, that, AIDS did not go away. It's still here, and we need stories like this to say, knock, knock, knock.
Absolutely. It's so true. It's really kind of a classist and racist idea that AIDS has gone away. I mean, we're still 5,000 people a year in the U.S. are still dying of AIDS. And, I've met young people who don't know anything about it, young queer people who don't know anything about it. Yeah. So this is an important thing to get out there.
Yeah, because I think the closest thing to it that people nowadays can relate with is the COVID-19. And I would love to know how that has infected everything. Because, I mean, people aren't together like they used to be or want to be. I mean, how would Micah and CJ handle a situation like this?
Well, it would be so different. I mean, one of the big differences between AIDS and COVID is that COVID is impacting everyone. So the entire society is sort of coming together. And I think a big part of this story is this feeling for both Micah and CJ. It's like, am I going crazy? Why is it that I know this thing is happening and I see these people dying in the streets and so on, and no one's talking about it? So it's very different in that way.
Now, compared to, let's say, San Francisco versus New York City, was it a different time period for you personally? Because when the research that you've done this, you're going back to '87, but both cities were under attack.
Absolutely, both cities were under attack. I grew up in New York. My understanding is that San Francisco banded together, as it would, because Californians are like that.
Right.
And New York, we really struggled. I think anything to do with the idea of being gay was something that was unacceptable at the time. So it just wasn't talked about, certainly not in the mainstream. So a real challenging time.
For Micah and CJ, was it like the forbidden fruit? It's like they knew what was going on, but they didn't. But at the same time, temptation is something that you can't run away from.
I think that they're two different kids, and I think very different approaches. So Micah is a more sort of conservative, scared kid, and there's a part of me from my life in that. And then there's CJ, who's kind of a wild child, and who is just, as you're saying, like forbidden fruit. And, there are definitely lots of different ways, but I wanted to explore both of those avenues.
How did you go back in and do the research? Because, in 1987, what does the preacher man always say? He says, you can't go back in your past because you're just going to rewrite it. In a way, did you just rewrite it?
It was actually a lot of fun to remember what I could and to use my social media to ask people who were there questions for what I didn't. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I loved about the 80s was the music, and
Yes.
I really leaned on music in this book. And that was a lot of fun too, to just go back to that time. Best music.
All right, now is that the reason why you've got the Micah and CJ dancing on the front cover of Destination Unknown?
Yeah, I think they meet in a club, so that's sort of where it is. But the music is center. I just don't know what happened. I'm an old guy, but I think the 80s is where it peaked.
And fashion was just like the thing. I mean, for you to be in that moment of writing, I mean, I can't imagine what was going on inside your imagination.
Yeah, it was. I mean, God, you remember there was the big hair and there were the mullets and there was all this stuff, and it was. It's funny that at the time, and I'm sure this is true of every generation, you think you're so cool, and then you look at it in 20 years and things are different.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we were the coolest, except for if you look at us now, we look really foolish.
See, that's the way I feel. I've been a daily writer since July of 1994. I can go back on any day all the way back to that time period. And you're right about those moments where you think you're cool, because when you go back and you look at it, you're going, that was kind of a stupid move. That really was not, I don't care how brave you are. Are you a daily writer as well and keeping a journal?
I was and that, by the way, helped me with writing the book, is that I was as a teenager.
Yeah.
So that really helped me get back in that mind frame. I'm not anymore. I do so much writing for my books that I wish I was, though. I think it's such a smart thing you're doing.
Well, what you did as a teenager is everything that I talk about on iHeartRadio when I say, when you're writing in that journal, it's dear future reader. You're leaving breadcrumbs for your future self.
Absolutely. And I don't think that people understand necessarily that the history is now. So I was saying this at my launch last night for this book, that it's like, you don't understand that we're going to have different understandings of the time that you're living through right now. So explore it, write it down, get it.
The book we're talking about is Destination Unknown, and you talked about it just a little bit ago about CJ being a little bit more opposite than Micah. What was that like for you to put that into paragraphs? Because, I mean, opposites do attract, but at the same time, they can also disconnect.
Yeah, they're very different, and one of the really fun things about this book is that CJ, along with being a wild child, is a liar.
Oh, God.
So it's fun to write somebody who is telling us stuff, and you don't know what's true, both as a reader and the character. And I really had a good time with that. To this moment, I still don't know whether some of CJ's stories are true.
So let me ask you a question, writer to writer here, in the way that I remember releasing a book, and one of my friends goes, that character is me, and you didn't get my permission. Do you ever run into that? And you explain to him going, no, it was not you, but it was me, because I know what happened. Do you ever run into things like that?
Yeah, I do. I think that, people have to understand that writers are pillagers, and we use our life. And we try, I hope, most of us, to be sensitive to other people's wants and needs. But look, don't say anything in front of me if you don't want it in a book, because it may well wind up there. That's how I use my life.
Oh, my God, that's how I feel about podcasting and stuff like that. I go, you sure you want to talk to me about this? Because it's going on the air.
That's right. Not a secret anymore. Yep.
So how important is a thesaurus to you in your writing? And because, you've got to be able to speak the street, and you do that so well with Destination Unknown. But at the same time, you're still an artist, and artists love to play with words.
Yes. I have learned in my time that one of the things that was hardest for me to do as a writer was to stop repeating myself with words that are good. And so, yes, I use a thesaurus. You just have to change it up. Mm-hmm. And it's very valuable. I'm constantly on that. And, of course, I use my computer thesaurus. But, yes.
So do you run into those moments, though, Bill, when people go, you're using too big of words, or did your editor ever say that to you?
No, because I really come from, I was a journalist for the Associated Press,
beautiful.
so I had that sort of taken away from me years ago. I'm a very sort of Hemingway kind of writer. Too brief, to the point, and simpler words. I like reading that way. Yeah,
see that being in radio for 43 years, you're absolutely right about that, because while we're writing, we envision the reader, and we know that they're there and they're looking over our shoulder.
Totally, and so you have to be aware. It's like you have one eye as yourself and one eye as the reader, and you're just trying to hit the balance right.
Now, coming from the LGBTQ crowd and groups of people and supporters and stuff like that, have you been offended by the fact that they're trying to attach the monkeypox to this? Because they're saying, well, people are getting together that shouldn't be getting together. And it's like, why would you attach this to a group of people?
Right. I think that, having lived through the AIDS epidemic, it's sort of like, oh, here we are again.
Yep.
There is a truth. As it turns out, this thing, the monkeypox, started at a LGBT event in Europe. And so that is the group of people it attached itself to. But I think we're doing a pretty good job of mostly getting away from that kind of incendiary language. Mostly.
Yeah, because we just had Charlotte Pride here and Pride Week, and the thing is that really it kind of offended me when all the big league decision makers were saying, well, we're not saying that monkeypox is attached to it, but we're going to send out 3,000 vaccines. I'm going, you just said that it was.
Yeah, well, we're talking out of both sides of our mouth, and what was so interesting about this monkeypox thing is, for so many years, for decades, many gay people have been angry at Republicans because Reagan and his, time in office, he was not paying attention to AIDS. Well, here we are with the Democratic president. Yeah. It didn't go very well. Yeah. So that was a very interesting lesson to learn.
Well, speaking of lessons, they always say that from dark times, there comes greater times. And do you think that the AIDS epidemic actually opened up gay activism in the world to where people could finally step out and make their presence known?
100%.
Thank you.
I think that the way that this happened was with the organization ACT UP, and I was there for it. I was part of it. It was finally time for gay people to say enough. Yeah. And I think that we have taught ourselves and each other and the world what, useful activism looks like. I'm really proud of the gay community for that.
So now, does a sequel need to happen? And the reason why, because Micah and CJ are living in a world where gay marriages were not accepted. But look at where we are now in 2022. Will there be a future book where these two get married?
So all I'll say is that there is an epilogue in this book.
Nice.
That answers that question. And I just could not leave the world without, the whole will they, won't they, where are they now? So you'll find out. It's good.
I love the fact that you just said you had to leave the world, because that's one thing that I like about being a writer is the fact that, when you get into that thought, you're gone. And so people will try to talk to me while I'm writing, and I have to sit there and kind of go, wait, let me catch up. Let me get up here where we are right now, because I'm not where you are.
Oh, my God. So we call it in our house bookhead. And it's just, that's where I am. I'm like, I'm living in this world and nobody else is there. And I'll want to say, oh, here's what my character said. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
So it kind of works both ways. I'm living here. You're living there. Tough to live with a writer, I imagine.
That's why I always laugh at people that tell me, oh, man, have you been on the metaverse yet? I've been on the metaverse ever since I picked up that writing instrument.
Right. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, absolutely. We're a different breed.
So let's talk about Micah's real fear and outrage and stuff like that, because I know that there's listeners that have that. In public, they have the calm fear and outrage, but behind those doors, no, they're taking it out on something.
Yeah, I think that rage is behind everything in this book, and I play a lot with three emotions in this book. There's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of tears, and there's a lot of anger. And I think that the answer in some ways is anger, because I think that the laughter is a deflection, which is totally normal, but it's because something outrageous is going on, we don't know how to react. And the tears it's appropriate because it's a sad time, but really it's that anger that mobilizes. And I think in this book, that's sort of how it goes. When both CJ and Micah, but especially Micah, learns to get angry, things turn around.
Ooh, my God, you just touched a big subject there. Learns to get angry, because once you get that energy release, I mean, that you got to get that thing under control.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they always say that depression is anger turned inward. I've suffered from depression.
Yep.
Boy, is it a big deal to finally kind of come in touch with that other side and just let it go.
Yep. That's why I keep defrag journals. I do a defrag journal every day where it's like, okay, sit down. We're going to have a conversation with each other, me and you.
That's That's fantastic. I love that. I think that's such a healthy and smart way to be.
Absolutely. I know we're talking about the book Destination Unknown, but you're a creative person, and I know that your destination is known. You're probably working on several books right now.
I am working on my first adult novel.
Really?
I don't have a contract, but I'm really excited about that. I keep telling people I'm in literary puberty, and this is sort of like I'm becoming an adult. So we'll see how that goes. I'm never saying never to more young adults. I just don't know yet.
You got to put on those big boy pants now and put on those big old shoes. They're heavy.
There you go. Exactly.
You got to come back to the show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
You bet. Well, you be brilliant today, okay? And thank you for what you're doing through your words on a page.
Thank you so much. You too.